everybody. Welcome to the February 2019 Dayton City Council meeting. Everyone please, let's do a roll call real quick.
Mayor Baker.
Here.
Member Volker.
Here.
Member Neary.
Here.
Member Basler.
Here.
Member Cornett. Here. Member Burns.
Here.
Member Lynn.
Here.
City Administrator Giffen.
Here.
City Attorney Edge.
Here.
Full attendance, fantastic. Now if we could please rise for a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to open up the forum for any type of audience participation. So if you'd please make your way to the podium, state your name and address. Love to hear from you.
Hi, I'm Diane Solberger, 611 6th Avenue, Dayton, Kentucky. I'd like to thank the city for cleaning the street today. I do appreciate it, but tough with like Rick from the Purple Filet, Barbara Cook, Mike from Sofa Burn, Bill Slusher from Protect Yourself, and the dirt is out of control. You know, I realize we've had a lot of snow and such. The day I was there, you kind of dismissed me because it's snowing out, Diane, but it's the only day, you know, you have to make time to come to the city building when you're not working. So, but the dust on the buildings on 6th, in that block, 600 block of 6th, is horrible. You know, everybody has to wash their windows continuously. You know, you see people out, Purple Filet, Sofa Burn folks, they're constantly having, and the buildings have crud on them from the dust. And when I moved here, we had, I don't know if it was every other Thursday or Tuesday or once a month on Tuesday, we had actual street cleaning. And that was 20 years ago, I realized. But we have got to do something about the truck mess. It's the trucks, they're the ones that bring the dust down the rubble down the street. And I was wondering, is there any way they could go down the new road, the wide road, where they wouldn't even be coming through town? They could totally bypass Dayton by using, I don't know the name, I assume it must be Manhattan Drive. I don't know the name of the new road. So just, that's, you know, pretty much all I have to say, but it's something we really have to do something about, because these businesses, my home, we're dragging yuck in every day. And, you know, I asked these people if I could speak for them, and they said yes. And, you know, everyone has the same problem. The dirt from people walking into businesses is incredible. And it's not really fair for any of the people on 6th to, you know, have trucks that are continuously going by the houses and businesses and leaving their, it's off of their tires, it's not coming off the top of the trucks. But if we could somehow make a new plan, make the company that's making the mess clean it up. You know, I appreciate the city doing it and such, but we need to have a plan, some kind of a plan. I don't have one.
I asked the same question last month at council meeting, and Michael has gotten in touch with Nelson Stark, right? And there is an ordinance that says if they make the mistake, and they have to clean it up. So Michael has gotten them to agree to start cleaning the streets more often than they
Right,
have.
I mean, it used to be that if you made a mess, you had to clean it up like that evening. And I assume that's not the rule anymore.
And then the other issue is, there is also an ordinance in place that does not allow the trucks to go on Manhattan Boulevard.
Yeah, so
Well, that's
they
nice.
they have agreed to run a street sweeper more often, and we're gonna try to run the street sweeper in between those runs. But, I mean, we have to be practical about what's reality, and the reality is, they can't go to every house and clean up the storefronts. It's just not practical. They by law have to use, are supposed to be using the state highway, so that's why they don't want to shift their trucking routes. It is now a dedicated street, Manhattan Boulevard, so every time that they use that road, we're responsible for the damage. So by nature, they're going to use the Kentucky State route. You know, this is just the price of progress and development, and I know I'll be the bad guy and speak the truth, but we're going to try to do everything we can, and they've agreed to help clean the streets, but we can clean the streets every day. The mud is still going to get on the cars, it's still going to get on the sidewalk, and it's still going to get on the buildings, unfortunately. It's just,
For how long? How long is Nelson going to
well,
start going to be in business?
they're the main contractors at Manhattan Harbor, so as long as there's development at Manhattan Harbor, there's going to be trucks running through the city. And even when Manhattan Harbor's finished, it's a state highway, so those
Well, we
heavy
always have
trucks
state highway.
can't use them. So, you know, I wish it wasn't an issue, and I wish we could solve the full problem, but it's just
So
impossible.
essentially, you can do nothing.
But if the company's willing to clean the streets more often, and then the city's gonna do it in between it should clean up.
Right,
Or-
you just can't let it wait 6 weeks like it's
Yeah,
been
your
this
issue,
time.
as long as you clean the front of your building or your windows at that time, if they're doing it on a regular basis, it should become cleaner. I mean, I know I lived on the avenue for about 20 years, and just by nature of living on a
Oh.
busy street, you get some of that.
Sure.
But I understand the increase. So if they're willing to start cleaning it more often, and the city's gonna do it,
Right.
we should have some resolution.
I think it would get better, but it's not, the problem is not going to go
Well,
away.
are we going to have some kind of schedule for this?
Yeah, as I said, they're going to come in at least once a month and clean, and we'll try to do it if we can. I don't know the full schedule. If we can get in and do it every week, we'll try to do it. If we do it every other week, whatever is necessary to keep it clean. But even if we ran a street sweeper every week,
Right.
you know, at this time of year, it's going to be wet and there's going to be mud. In the summer, when it's dry, there's going to be dust. It's just, you know, we can only control so much of it by nature. And
But we
so
are
we'll do the
having-
best we can to clean it up, but can't eliminate the mud and dirt from getting on the cars and on the windows.
do
It's
they
happening in
have-
Bellevue too.
Wheel washers?
They do, but they do have wheel washers, but, and in the summer, that's great. But right now, when everything's wet,
Oh,
it
yes.
does no good. They're
I'm
gonna-
not speaking of this month,
Yeah,
you know.
well, it's just, you have the weather and the different times of year creates different problems. Right now, it's mud, and
But
in
it's
the
been
summer.
consistent since August.
I
you know?
understand, and it is not going away.
It was real hot then.
Yeah, it's
so-
not going away. In the summertime, when it's dry, it's dirt and dust, and it gets on the
But
cars.
the wheel washer thing would probably be the best solution for them.
They do, and in the summertime, that helps, but in the wintertime, there's just picking up mud. It's just,
Hey, Michael, do you know how often we currently clean our main avenue?
currently, they've just been doing it as we requested.
Okay, so,
But I told, at the last meeting, and we made the comment that I would look into it, and what I came back with was that Nelson Stark would be willing to do a more rigorous cleaning schedule once a month, and that we could come in with our street sweeper in between. Ours isn't great, but it helps. I mean, on a
But
day
the
like today.
city
when
did
it's
it
wet-
today.
Yeah,
They
like it was
haven't done
wet
it at
today,
all.
so it actually kind of helped.
Right, it's much better.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, but, you know, the last time I spoke with you were gonna get in touch with them and such. But, you know, we're not having a plan as to when they're going to do
Well,
it.
they said once a month, so, I mean, that's,
Well, what month is that gonna start?
well, like I said, they would have done it, after the last meeting, they would have done it that week, and then we just got an onslaught of
Right.
terrible weather.
Okay.
They're not gonna come in when there's, snow and
Snow on the
slush.
ground, I understand that.
So it's just,
Okay.
we're gonna juggle it based on the elements, but when we get into late spring and summer, when it's a little bit more consistent weather, you'll see them come in once. Maybe we can even get them in twice a month if it gets really bad. But to say that it's going to be the first Thursday of every month, that's just not realistic. But we will try to get them in once a month, and we will do our best to clean in between cleans. And I think it will help the problem, but I just wanted to be clear that it's impossible to solve it. And they're not going to be able to come in and wash everybody's windows and wash everybody's
I
cars.
didn't ask that.
No, I know, some people do that.
I was just saying that the buildings are a
Yeah.
mess.
Oh, I
You know,
don't doubt it.
we got fined for a thing that we would be fined if we didn't take the paint chips off of our fence. Well, now we've done that, you know, and now we have mud all over the fence. So, you know, it seems like no matter what you do on the avenue, you can't get,
I'm not going to pretend it's not an inconvenience. It
yeah,
is.
I mean, you're not dragging it into your home.
Well, I am, because it gets on my car every day, too.
No, but I mean, you're not walking into your house every day with mud all over the bottom.
I am.
You are, yeah.
Michael, to go along with the lady's request, and you said you had a plan for 6th Street. I happen to be down on 4th Street today.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's horrid.
Well, that
If it's,
that would
if
be
it's set
part
in
of
your
it.
plan,
It'll
it's
be
gonna
part
go
of it.
4th Street, all Route 8, that's fine.
If I could, with the cleaning of the streets, well, first off, I'm presuming that all the dump trucks coming through are covered with the tarp, because I know that was an issue a couple of years ago. When we do the street sweeping, it's sometimes an inconvenience to people because we say no parking on this side for this day. Had you received any complaints about that weighed against the other issue?
People complain about having no parking?
Yeah.
No, I've never received that.
Okay. Because even if you go down there right now, you wouldn't be able to sweep the streets.
Well, no,
because of all the cars
today,
on.
today we just had a chance, and they just had to weave in and out of cars.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to approach council? Okay. The mayor's report, nothing to report this time. I need an approval for the minutes from the January 2nd, 2019 council meeting.
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes from January 2nd, 2019.
Member Neary's made the motion. Member Lenz made the second. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Baser abstains, so passes. For the board appointments. Do you have the board appointments?
You have, she didn't know if you wanted to talk about it, bring it up. I think Aaron Fox is one of them.
Thank you very much. So we have the following board appointments for Main Street Board. We have one opening currently with Erin Fox. She is the proprietor at the Body of Art Tattoos. We all know Erin. So we're asking her to serve on the Main Street Board. Need a motion to allow Erin to serve on the board?
So moved.
Moved by member Volker.
Gladly second.
It's a duel, so I'll give it to Scott. Since it's his first council meeting, member Baser seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So moved. Now we'll move on to ordinances and orders. So we had some readings last month. So first reading passed for ordinance number 2019, number 1, to adopt the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code and to amend the other provisions.
City of Dayton, Kentucky Ordinance 2019 number 1. An ordinance amending chapter 150 of the Dayton Code of Ordinances to adopt the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code and amend other provisions to conform with the City of Dayton Code of Ordinances. This ordinance amends section 150.03 of the City of Dayton Code of Ordinances to adopt the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code as replacement to the previously adopted 2015 International Property Maintenance Code. This ordinance also changes minor provisions within the section 150.03 to conform with entire Code of Ordinances.
So I need a motion to accept ordinance number 2019, number 1.
So moved.
So moved by member Lynn. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by member Cornett. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Any comments?
Any comments?
I have one, sir.
Please do.
302.8, replacing with no inoperative, abandoned, or unlicensed motor vehicle, trailer, recreational vehicle, yada, yada. I'd like to see stronger enforcement of that this year by code enforcement, by police force, et cetera. I know you've been working on it, but I'd like to see that as a concentration, especially this spring. Pretty much every neighborhood has at least one violation, including my own. And especially the trailers, recreational vehicles, campers, boats, and similar equipment to be in the rear yard. I know there's been some issues with that in the past. I know when I was on board of adjustments, we had some contention on that. But if you could have your staff concentrate on this year, I think we always have a parking problem in town, and I know that some of the parking spaces on the streets are taken up by inoperable vehicles. That's it, sir.
Duly noted. Any other comments? Motion passes. Second ordinance on the agenda is ordinance number 2019, number 2, the increase the payment and appeal deadlines for code enforcement citations.
City of Dayton, Kentucky, ordinance 2019, number 2, an ordinance amending chapter 38 of the City Code of Ordinances to increase the payment and appeal deadlines for code enforcement citations from 7 to 10 days. This ordinance amends section 38.08 of the City of Dayton Code of Ordinances to change the deadline for payment or appeal of a code enforcement citation from 7 to 10 days.
We have a motion to accept ordinance number 2019, number 2.
So moved.
So moved by member Volter. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by member Lynn. Do we have any comments? No comments? Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Member Neary?
Aye.
Member Basler?
Aye.
Member Cornett?
Aye.
Member Burns?
Aye.
Member Lynn?
Aye.
Member Volter?
Aye.
The ayes have it, ordinance passes. The last ordinance on today's agenda is ordinance number 2019, number 3, and that is correcting a scrivener's error in the alcoholic beverage license fees.
City of Dayton, Kentucky, ordinance 2019, number 3, an ordinance correcting a scrivener's error in alcoholic beverage license fee. This ordinance amends and corrects chapter 111.10 of the City of Dayton Code of Ordinances for alcoholic beverage license fees by changing the NQ3 retail drink license from $708.75 to the state maximum fee allowed of $300.
We have a motion to approve ordinance number 2019, number 3.
I'll make that motion.
The motion's been made by Ms. Cornell. Do I have a second? Second by member Neary. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Ordinance number 2019, number 3 passes. Now on to the city administrator's report.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, of course.
Do we have a list of the board appointments? We haven't, I don't think anybody on council has seen these board appointments for the new year.
Most certainly have a list. Most certainly. I have, make sure Donna sends those out, and also make sure that they're published on the web, so everyone knows who they can contact if they need to. Thank you. Mr. Giffen, your administrator's report?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to table the handicap parking request. I spoke with the applicant today. He doesn't have all of the qualifications met. He's in the process of doing so. So I told him I would come back to you in March. There's a planning and zoning meeting here tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. The purpose of the meeting is to discuss a text amendment. We looked at some language in our business district ordinances and the definition of drive-in, or sorry, lack thereof of a definition of a drive-in that we'd like the planning and zoning board to take a look at. So the purpose tomorrow night, they'll look to define some terms provide some consistency in the language and balance some access between the mobility needs without hopefully increasing congestion. So if you're interested in that, that'll be at 7 o'clock here tomorrow night. That will come back as a recommendation to you all at the March meeting, and we can discuss it further at that time. We did receive 3 bids for banking services: Westco Bank, Heritage Bank, and PNC Bank. I'll probably grab the Finance Committee sometime middle to later this month, and I'll send those out to you all to kind of start to take a look at, and then we'll bring those back, a recommendation to council in March. I don't see Mr. Perry here, and he made a note for me to announce that the reality store that he does every year is on March 1st. Continental breakfast starts at 8:30, it goes from 8:30 to 9, and it's starting from 9 to 11. He's got all the students coming in from the store. I know a lot of you all volunteer in the past. I'm sure they could probably use a volunteer or two, so if you're interested, reach out to Mr. Perry. I'm sure he'd be thrilled to have you. He also wanted me to mention that the museum is open. It'll be open this weekend. It's open the second of 4 Saturdays of the month from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then one last announcement, the city building is closed on February 18th for President's Day. Unless anybody has any questions, that's all I have.
Yeah, two of them. One is, who is the finance committee?
You and Tammy, if I'm correct.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, we were going to announce you from your previous experience in Tammy.
Okay. And then my second question is I didn't see anything on your report, and we talked about this right before the meeting, is what we're doing with the city building.
And so I have talked to KCF, and they're willing to meet whenever. I have held off on scheduling a formal meeting, and the reason for that is I'm still waiting to see if there's one particular site that we're looking at as the second option is available. If it is available as an option, then we'll have to bring it back to you all for approval to do some sort of cost analysis, or to even see if it's an option that you all want to entertain. So I didn't want to be premature and set a meeting with KZF until we knew what options may or may not be on the table. So hopefully in the coming weeks we'll find that out. We've been waiting for a couple of weeks on the information. It's slow to get back into.
We wanted to make sure that we had both, if not more, options available to the public, so everyone can see what's on the table before we weigh on everyone's opinion.
How long are we willing to wait for that?
For that other party to get back to you.
For the other party to get back to us? I mean, by
This is
next
up-
meeting it has to.
This is up to you all.
For the man up there.
Well, you have no idea.
They're willing to, KZF is flexible. I just didn't want to set a meeting with doubts or not knowing what fully was going to be an option. And if some of these things that we're looking into are options, it's going to require you all's decision to allocate money to look into those further as well. So I didn't want to set a meeting without knowing those details first.
I'd like to say that if we don't hear nothing back by our next meeting, that we should move forward with the present plans that we were looking at.
I
I
agree.
mean, that's another month, and it's already been almost a month. So if they don't get back to you in 2 months' time, I mean, one time we already told they weren't interested, so I think, we can't wait forever.
We can't, but there's no real immediate need. I'd hate to make a $7 million decision based on a month or two.
Don't base that $7 million. There's never been a $7 million figure come out here, Mr. Baker. Never. That's not, there's never been a $7 million figure that I have been told.
6.5. It was in the packet you received in your board, sir.
6.5 was different than 7, isn't it?
Well, it's already been longer than a month anyway, because we've kind of been waiting since, October, November timeframe for all the other things to fall into place. I really do think that another month is, at least to me, the longer you wait, isn't the cost going to go up? I mean, it's kind of a thing.
I would also like to see us give the public a 30-day notice on the public hearing. So, I mean.
So if we do it next month, then that's another 30 days, we're looking into April, May.
Okay. I'll make a motion then, that we give them another month to get back to you. And if they don't, then I think we should proceed on with our original plan to set up a meeting with KZF and with the first citizens and move on.
I second that motion.
Motion been made by Member Lynn and a second by Member Burns. Do we have any comments on this particular topic?
Yeah, I don't think there's enough details in that to even like have a say on that. I mean, we don't have the money to go forward with the project, so why do we need to rush a meeting about the project?
Well, there is money to go forward, Scott.
But, I mean, isn't that up to the mayor?
Council's got a vote.
It's up to you.
Okay.
According to Michael's financial package that he put together, based on what KZF has proposed, we definitely have the money to be able to do it. It was a very good proposal. I thought it was very understandable. Anybody should have been able to figure it out. I don't see what
And don't get me wrong, I don't see a problem with looking at other options, but if we don't hear nothing by the next council meeting, to me it seems like they're not interested.
The organization that we're working with is not necessarily a guy looking to sell a building, it's an organization. And they have expressed interest. It's a matter of going through the proper process and procedure.
The first time we talked to them, they said they weren't interested in selling.
I think we have to be very careful here, ladies and gentlemen. Real estate issues, we have to be careful.
Right.
I'm fine with waiting until next month and making a decision then as to whether or not to move forward. Not to commit the $4 or $6.5 million or whatever, but to schedule a public hearing, et cetera. I'm fine with waiting until next month for that. I think we owe it to the taxpayers, the current taxpayers and the taxpayers for the next 20 or 30 years to do our due diligence with these possible other options.
Yeah, my point was, I didn't think it was fair to KZF to send them out to a public meeting if there's several council members that have other ideas on what could be done. I think when KZF presents, we need to have an idea of what are all the options on the table right now. We don't have that, so.
So I presume the motion is passed.
Well, no, we haven't voted.
Well, the other thing is, I don't want to get into a protracted discussion about whether we can afford it or not, but I just want everybody to keep in mind that, you know, from my perspective at least, there are quite a few other priorities that are going to cost money. We've got to do something with salaries. Got to. And long-term, that raises our cost annually. So, I mean, we've got to keep our professional people on board. We've got to do that. There are a few other things that are, the pension issue is still out there. I'm not sure how much that's going to cost us, but it's going to cost us. There are a number of things. So, you know, I just want us to all keep those kinds of things in mind.
Any other comments on the issue? All right, so a motion's been made by Member Lynn, seconded by Member Burns. And Denny, can you repeat your motion?
Motion is that if we do not hear anything from the other party that we're looking at by the next council meeting, that we move forward with a public hearing or such with KZF on the city building.
So the motion is if we do not hear back from the other parties to move forward with a public meeting on the KZF proposal. Can I get a roll call vote, Tiffany?
Member Basler?
No.
Member Cornett?
Yes.
Member Burns?
Yes.
Member Lynn?
Yes.
Member Moulter?
No.
Member Neary?
Yes.
The yeses have it.
Is it the end of the administrator's report?
Yes.
Okay, I have, and since we have now established the finance committee, with the projections for, projections for expenditures for next year, and it keeps on coming up about the radios. Where are we with the radios? for the police, fire, public works, and
Yeah,
the
the two
state.
chiefs are probably better to talk to about that than me, but we have, Chief Hatfield and I talked about, we're putting together the RFP now. They've delayed everything, from what I understand, into the fall, is that correct?
I don't know,
It's
it's
kind of a-
midsummer, yeah.
We're working on the
It was
RFP,
spring,
go
it was
ahead and
May,
get that
June.
out. I think we're gonna try to go ahead and get that out and bid it. We know who the players are. When it actually will hit, we don't know, but we're gonna get ahead of it, and at least get the RFP out.
Let's see where some other communities in northern Kentucky have already made the
Some of them already
commitment.
done that.
And I was wondering when our hand was gonna get forced on that, if we're just gonna have to stand out there with a boot and
So
suss and bury.
the head will be forced, but we've got plenty of time to get the bids out. We know who the players are, who's gonna bid them, so it's not that complex of a process.
Do you have an approximate range of the costs?
Anywhere between 65 to 70,000.
Is that
That's
just for
the
police department?
That's just for the police.
So, Michael, if I can, Director Evanson, who's in charge of dispatch, has said that we will not go live. He will not go live with the upgrades until everybody's on board. So we're not going to be sitting there with tin cans and wiring them. So he will not go live until everybody's prepared and ready to go. From the fire side of it, we are in a grant with the rest of the departments in the county. It's an AFG grant, and we were supposed to hear something by the 1st of March, but with the shutdown, the peer review, which was supposed to start the first week of January, has not happened. So that is going to happen this week, so it's pushing everything back. And because of the shutdown, it's another reason that the dispatch has said they will not go live until everybody is ready. If the grant comes through, from the fire side, our cost is going to be about $8,000.
Pardon me?
$8,000. That's going to be our side, our cost, because it's a 95% matching grant. So our cost,
Oh,
if
if
the
you
grant
get the
comes
grant,
through,
if you get the grant,
it'll cost
okay.
us about $8,000 for all the radios and infrastructure and everything. If not, the manufacturer we had is going to cost about $80,000. We do have another option is to go with a different radio, and it's a good radio. It's just not as well known as one. Covington just bought them and saved a bunch of money, and we're looking, if we have to spend everything out of pocket, we're looking at about $55,000 as opposed to $85,000.
And that would be split evenly between Bellevue and Dayton, obviously.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, we got to kind of plan to not get the grant, 'cause I'm
sure,
sure
and
everybody else is.
we're always looking as being pessimistic and say we're not going to get it.
Yeah.
So we have a plan in place if,
And we have everything, on both the fire side and the police side and the public works side, we're well budgeted for that. Now, whether it's a little low, a little high, we're not far off. So we already have it budgeted for, and I don't think the numbers, if they come in higher, aren't going to come in substantially higher, so.
And that was my point originally with the finance committee, and they'll be starting to work on the next fiscal year budget to make sure that we've got the room in there, got that already.
Well,
committed.
it's already in, it was in the budget you all passed in.
Understood, but
So we
we don't
just
have
roll
to have it in
yeah,
next year.
We just roll it over.
Okay. Understood. Thank you, Chief. And pray that we get the grant. The other thing is with the budget setting coming up, I think we need to have an intelligent discussion about the point that I brought up in the past quite a few times about the $67,000 that's taken out of the park fund and put into the general fund for public works. We've got a lot of work that we would like to have done on our parks. We've expanded our park system last year with the new ordinance on the parks. I know there's been a lot of interest in Sargent Park. I think we need to have a discussion at some time as I'd like to see that 67 stay budgeted specifically to the parks rather than the general fund. I know why it was put into the general fund, but I would like to see it dedicated strictly for the parks. So if you work that into your budget magic as you're planning next year, I would greatly appreciate it.
I'll look into it.
Thank you, sir.
I would note for you, Councilmember Harry, there is some additional Sergeant Park funds too that have been.
Minimal.
Well, they're specifically for Sergeant Park. Should
Understood.
have any need, but they're there as well.
I think the balance on that is, what, 30,000?
Something.
Correct.
Which wouldn't even cut a path up the hill at this point. Understood, that part is specifically for Sergeant Park, but now that Sergeant Park is part of the park system, we can use the park funds in Sergeant Park.
Of course,
Where previously we could not.
I'm just telling you that there is those funds.
Understood, yeah. And that does not get replenished.
No, that's
Once we spend that, that's gone.
Of course, but like any other money that you get from here, you year. Once you spend it, it's gone. But that fund's there for that purpose. It doesn't get replenished from anything, and once it's actually depleted, it actually will make it a little easier on our management of the funds because you don't have the extra paperwork that's involved in maintaining that extra account.
Understood. Thank you. That's all I have, sir. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Anything else to report, Mr. Giffen?
That's all I have.
Now we turn over to Mr. Edge for the city attorney's report.
If you know of any business or rental property that hasn't paid occupational or payrolls for 2018, now is the time to get in gear. Notice has been sent out to the clerk several times this year to get those taxes paid that were due on the 15th of last year. They will be getting a warning letter from me here soon. It looks like about 20 or so offenders. If those are not taken care of like we do every year, we'll pursue criminal charges or civil proceedings to collect those funds, and we're usually pretty successful on that. So if you know someone that has that problem, then they probably ought to get that resolved here sooner than later, because that's where it's going at this point. Then also, just to note, the 2019 ones will be coming due here April 15th.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edge. The department head report. Chief Atkins?
Thank you, Mayor. You all received my monthly report. I don't have a whole lot to add. But you may see us out. We'll be starting our new cycle of our inspections, so every January we start, and we'll be inspecting all the businesses and any multifamilies above 2 families, residences. So you'll see us out doing that. You see us out on the streets. That's what we're doing. Not out just lollygagging and shopping. We're going in and checking for any fire code violations or life safety issues. So we have about 400 inspections that we have to do every year. Those recycle every January 1st. So if you see us out, that's what we're out doing. Other than that, I do not have a whole lot to say.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
how's your new fire personnel doing?
Outstanding.
Fantastic,
Outstanding.
fantastic.
They're all
I
young
knew
and
that
eager.
would be fantastic.
They're young and they're eager and willing to learn, willing to work.
I just noticed on your report the trained hours,
Yes, sir.
everybody's up at level 3 except for 2, and I'm assuming that's
To the new guy.
2 new guys?
Yep.
Great job, great
Yes,
job,
sir.
Chief.
All right. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know if there's been an inspection of the laundromat lately? And if not, can one be done? I was gonna stop and take a look, but I forgot to do it. I heard there was a ceiling fan hanging and that the washers are running continuously, and that to me is kind of a fire hazard.
Okay.
They can't get them to turn off.
I can't tell you if they've done an inspection recently or not. I don't have inspections in front of you, but I can definitely put it on the guy's to make sure that it gets done sooner rather than later.
Okay.
So. Yes.
Next board meeting?
Not sure yet. It's probably going to be somewhere around February 21st. We're waiting for all the appointments to come in so we can send out a letter, make sure that, or send out an email, make sure that everybody's available. It was originally for the 20th, but Bellevue had to move their council meeting to that night because I guess some council members were going to be out of town on the 13th when the original council meeting was. So they moved theirs to the 20th. So that kind of bumped us. So we're looking at probably the 21st if everybody can be there. So as soon as I get everything, we'll shoot an email.
Do we know who's on the fire board yet?
It's actually coming a little later. Yeah. I can do it right now, I guess. I was going to announce the fire board would be Councilmember Volter, Councilmember Neary, and resident Brett Newspicker.
Who was the third one, Bill, I'm sorry?
Brett Newspicker. I'll need a motion to approve the recommendation of the fire board.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Member Burnett. Second?
No, second.
Second by Member Neary. All in favor?
Aye.
Any noes?
No.
Any abstentions? Ayes have it. Chief Aftel?
You all have my reports put together. January's regular monthly report. Also with the numbers for the calendar year of 2018, just how we did the year. So usually when you want to know about the whole year, you want to know about previous years, so I attached the form also to see how we've been progressing through the years. When I got 2014 through 2018. I came in 2018, just FYI. I put 2014 in there just to show prior numbers before we get here. So the guys have been substantially busy. They do, you know, I can't say enough about the guys that we have, and they really go out and keep our community safe. So they do a good job. Just a shout out to them. So that's all I have.
Chief, I want to compliment you and your staff. I looked at this report real quick. I want the public to know that there was over 9,100 police actions last year alone. But the main thing I want to tell you, congratulations on, every one of these reports, auto thefts, auto check, thefts, they went down over the last 5 years since you've taken over. That's an outstanding job by you and your staff. Please pass it on to me. Thank you.
And I also have to say that the drug arrests have gone up substantially.
Yeah, I mean, when I got here, I mean, it was pretty much the beginning of the heroin epidemic, and obviously drug arrests went up. It was a battle, you know, and we just talked prior to the meeting, you know, we kind of got our hands on it a little bit more than what we did when we first started, but now, you know, meth moving in. It's always the what's next for the battle. You know, prior to heroin, it was prescription medication, then went to the heroin, now it's gone to the meth. So we're battling meth right now, and so when we get our hands on that, on top of that, it's going to be what's next. You know, what's after that, after the heroin and the meth. So I think the meth is a little bit more dangerous for our guys, not just us, but police, the fire department and our nursing staff. Because meth causes more of an internal rage that puts a lot of people at risk and harm. So you're going to see that more in the news and the hospitals having to deal with those type of people. I mean, we just had one yesterday. You know, we had to transport up, and they had to get it right to the hospital and get brought down, get some medicine to be brought down off of whatever they're on that's amping them up so much. So it really does, and it really has, and it will, for our emergency staff and our employees a little bit of danger, a little bit more. So, as you see it in the news, this area has been devastated. I think so far this year we've had seven this year, 7 in the past month or so. So just in this area. So hopefully it doesn't hit us at home, but we're trying to best we can. So that's all.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Yoder with the Economic Development Report, please.
Yeah.
So let you know that January was a quieter month, but we've been really busy with people looking at locating new businesses in Dayton. Probably every other day talking to somebody about planning on looking at new businesses, asking lists for available buildings or buildings that might be available. So I'm pretty confident when the fall comes and spring comes around, we'll have a lot of good things here happening. Also, if you look down the street, I want to point out Avenue Pharmacy at the old Smitty's is coming along. They should be done this month, moving in there next month, so we'll be vetting for them. 620 6th Avenue is moving along wonderfully, getting that building all done. I know Chris is talking with people to move in there. He hasn't made an announcement yet, but that's going on there. So I think both of those will be completed probably within the next month, so it was good to have that there. I do want to bring up though, that those two projects kind of tap out my facade structural improvement funds for this year. So I think Mike and I were talking about getting the finance committee together and looking at the economic development fund and possibly see about whether we want to put some more funds in that for next year or move those over to the next fiscal year. But we have done more facade structural improvements this year than we've done in the past 4 years of the program. And you can all see it on the street, everything that's going on. So it bodes well, and it's something going on there. Well, with Brent being put on there, I have another opening on my Main Street board coming up, at least one. So if anybody's interested in being on the Main Street board, reach out to me at the City Building, 491-1600, or by email, ryoder@tkY.com. We had our first meeting about a week ago, and we had a good time. We got a lot of new people on the board this time, but
Who's on the board?
right now, we've got Aaron, we've got Laura Stanberg, Jay Banks, I think Kathy Walter, and then I have one more open, so at least one more open. So one thing we're doing is for this, I'm making a push to have some business owners more than we did in the past. And I think Jay and Aaron really bring a lot of enthusiasm and creativity to this board. So I think that will go well for us. So I'm happy to go on the board, we're pulling together. So Board of Architecture Review is all full, doing well, moving along great. Did you ever got the article in for?
I've started to get it over 10.
Okay. We might even have an article in the next Dayton Community News. So that's going on well. So we're doing really well. We started in January for a new year. So any questions? Oh, I want to one more little thing. Ben had brought up that I've been working in the background with some people who do trails and stuff. So probably in the next month have a call meeting for Sergeant Park. Get out there, and I have some people who build trails. We'd like to go out and see what's out there and kind of mark the trails that already exist and stuff like that. So I'm trying to I have some people who are in town over the winter whose professional job is to go out and build trails. So they're really interested in getting involved in their own self-interest. They want to see it opened up. So they're working with that, and just had a meeting today at the Campbell County Extension Office, and they're working on a countywide program to get information together on all the trails all the different cities have. So we just had our first meeting on that today.
Bob, can you continue along with Tom? If there's monies owed to the city for construction, that we get our monies back?
You mean on grants or what?
That monies that was given to a structure for rehabbing and I don't want to divulge too much, but
okay.
There's a business that owes the city money right now.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll take a look at so a business who received funding from us. That's exactly. We will move forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Because generally, if you do not have your taxes paid,
thank you.
We do not give you anything.
Thank you.
All right. So we got that.
Anybody else?
Okay.
I have another question, and I'm just confused on the board issues. Tonight, we approved Aaron to be on the board, but I don't recall ever seeing anything where we approved Jay or Laura.
Laura's been on for more than a year, and Jay was made by an executive order by previous Mayor Brust.
Okay. Nobody told us anything, so we don't know.
We're fixing that.
I didn't know you were on it, I'm sorry.
I actually just got sworn in like in November.
Yeah.
I've been attending for
You've been
years.
attending forever. So.
Yeah, for Christmas was 3 years I've been attending. But I was actually just sworn in last November.
So the previous mayor swore the other two members in.
Thank you, Mr. Gutter. Mr. Lyles with the code enforcement, please.
Mayor, Council, good evening. You all received my report over the weekend, just a little summation. There were 77 letters issued for the month of January. Of those, 23 were citations and 54 were notice of violations. And as you read the in-depth part of the report, you can see what citations were issued, whether they were a first, second, or third citation, and a first, second, or third violation. For Scott, how that usually works is I'll initially issue the notice of violation. If they don't adhere to the follow-up or make contact with me by the date that they're given, and for anybody else in the audience, if they don't adhere by the date that they're given to get the work done or to at least get the work started and make contact with me, then I'll issue them a citation, and then I'll issue them a second notice of violation, giving them a new date to complete the work. And then that's kind of how the cycle works. Depending on what the work is will depend on how long the time is given. If it's paint, obviously you can't do it in the wintertime. So depending when it's issued, whether it's self-initiated or a complaint, the majority of the time it's a complaint, but sometimes if I roll up on something that I'm inspecting and notice something else, then it will be initiated by me as opposed to coming in via complaint. But then I'll issue the second notice of violation and give them a new date. What I'm really looking for from these people, from everyone, whether it be a homeowner or a landlord who doesn't live there but owns the property, is I'm looking for them to get back to me. And the thing I tell them, which I've told you all, is we want the work to be done. We want people to be comfortable living here and to feel comfortable in their properties, value to go up and not be surrounded by one or two properties that are a mess. So that's the whole focus of this. And unfortunately, sometimes the only way to get that done is to hit their pocketbook. But we'd rather them spend the money on making the repairs. If people will reach out to me once they receive a violation, then I'm much less going to give them a citation. I'll move their date of completion farther out and give them time to get that work done. If it's not done or they don't reach out, then they'll be issued a second violation and a third notice of violation. So that's where these come from. As you look in the report, you'll see a notice of violation, a second notice of violation, or a third notice of violation, or a citation. Don't be confused, because the first citation that's issued says citation 2017. And that's because early in 2017, that was created then, and the 2017 was put on there to not be confused with the prior citations that they were using. So even though it says 2017, the date of issue is the month that you're getting the report. So as I stated, there were 23 citations, 54 notice of violations. I also wrote 16 parking tags and towed 6 vehicles. And the majority of those vehicles that are towed are usually for expired tags. And that is, if it's an out-of-state tag, I'll usually give it 2 months, and then I'll tow it. If it's a resident or a Kentucky tag, I'll give them 3 or 4 months, also depending on if they have insurance or not. When we run a plate, if a tag's expired 2 months, sometimes people forget, but if they have maintained insurance, then I'm more than likely just to give them a tag. It's another one of those things where we don't want to hurt our residents. We want to remind them that they need to get their plates renewed. But if they don't have insurance, then we kick into a liability issue, so we go ahead and tow those vehicles. And also for the month, I closed out, I think it was 56 reports. And there again, some of those are old ones that I come across that are too old to follow up on. Based on that case, I'll do an inspection and open a new case if there are no pictures. If there are some cases that are older ones before I got here and they have pictures, I'll follow up on that case. So that's where I'm at on that. Anybody have any questions, concerns?
Yeah. I got a call on a particular residence, and I can see that it's on your list, it's second citation, third notice of violation.
Okay.
But it's owned by a bank.
I hit the banks and try to make contact with them just the same. The banks, the federal government, the state of Kentucky. If you own it, you own it. If you're a bank, you gotta maintain it.
How long do we go, I mean, what's the next step if they're not responding or they're not fixing the issue?
Well, unfortunately, it's just a vicious cycle, and as long as they pay the taxes, unfortunately, there really isn't a whole lot we can do. And if they pay a tax that has a $1,750 worth of fines on it, and they still pay the taxes, it doesn't go back to $250, but I just keep issuing them a third citation for $1,000 and another third notice of violation, and it keeps piling up. And if I didn't do it, the banks would just leave it sit there for months and maybe even longer. And I don't know if my predecessor let it go because it was a bank, or because it was HUD, or because it was the state of Kentucky. I really, if you own the property and you're not maintaining it, then I'm gonna let you know.
Yeah, this one's got a blue tarp on the roof.
I can walk you right there with my eyes closed. I've been there a lot of times and written them a lot of letters and citations, and
Look, I'm gonna make two comments. First, I really appreciate you towing cars, but I've talked to you many times, I've talked to the chief many times, and I'd like to talk to the audience right now, the citizens of Dayton. One of the pet peeves I've had is people living in the city of Dayton that has Ohio plates. It's your duty to contact the police or Phil or someone, because they're not paying taxes, they're not paying insurance. The city of Dayton's, we're not getting our monies, which is hurting you. So contact Phil or the chief, and let's get these people with Ohio plates out. This is ridiculous, people. I don't care what anybody says. And the second comment I want to make is this. I've been on this council for a few years now. I will tell you something. I've never seen reports like this. Fantastic job. Keep it up.
thank you.
Bill, if I can add to that, the website is www.freddyfreeroader.com. So if you get on the state's website, or you can just Google it, just put in Freddie Freeroader, Kentucky Freddie Freeroader, and you can be anonymous, and you can put it in the plate and the address of where the vehicle is located.
That also was put in the February newspaper, a little paper.
And to add with Phil, I was here when I started my career. I've been 22 years, and there's been some houses here that have been empty for almost 20 years. And I'm seeing houses now on like 500 block of 3rd that are now, since we've been going after them as a city and the banks and all that stuff, they're putting the property up for sale, where citizens are able to come in and rehab these properties and make them look nice. And I've been seeing that more and more often, and it's nice to see. So I just wanted to add that.
One of the other things that's kind of come to light for you all, mostly for you all, is accessing the code enforcement complaint form. I kind of found out today by looking at one of our employees who's been here for a long time. If it's hard for her to find, then it's probably 10 times harder for John Q. Public Citizen to find. So I'm going to get with Bob, and we're going to move the code enforcement complaint form tab or access to the front page, and make it a little bit easier for everyone to find. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, move on to correspondence. Any petitions? Any unfinished business?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Volker, please.
We had a request by a citizen last month that we move the audience participation to the end, towards the end of our business. I would like to see that happen. I would also like to see a time limit put on audience participation of about 3 minutes. Reason being, I think we owe it to our citizens to be able to ask questions and make comments based on the information that's given to them at the meeting. So that's, if I need to put that in the form of a motion, I will. I'd just like to have some discussion on that right now, if anybody else feels the same way or not.
I agree with Jeff. Just make a motion.
I have, I guess we gotta make the motion in a second.
Well, we're discussing right now. So.
I've been on both sides of the coin, and then I remember back in the day when you could just yell out from the audience all times during a meeting. You know, all the things that we just had readings on and we passed, if we let John Q. Public talk at the end of it after we've already made the decision, it's kind of a moot point. I think now that the administration over the past year and a half has done a lot better job about getting this information out in advance. The agenda, all ordinances obviously have a first and second reading, so I think, I worry about voting on something and then having the flashback afterwards and having to rethink our vote. I think, honestly, the way that this works is better, quite frankly. I do agree with the time limit because we've all sat through 15, 20-minute expectations, but that's my point. I'm fine with it at the beginning. It gives everybody a chance to give their input before we vote.
Well, I think you had a little bit of a point there, Joe, but the thing is that these ordinances have 2 readings. So they can hear the first reading, and then they can speak on it before it's even voted on.
I tend to agree with Mr. Neary on this one as far as you don't want to vote on something without hearing public input, and if the first reading they didn't hear about it, and they hear about it on social media or through the newspaper or whatever, and then come in the next time and we don't hear that input, then we're missing out on 2 opportunities for the public to speak up before we make a vote that could impact their lives.
Say that again, because I don't quite get that. So when we have our first reading on our ordinances, they got to wait a month to make a comment. Okay?
Yep.
If something comes up, they can't make the meeting, they forget in a month, which I might have a tendency to do, then they don't get to make a comment.
But a lot of citizens, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, they do not get to make a comment. They don't get to voice their opinion. Whereas at the end, I think they do have a chance to. And you're saying it's gonna cause us to second guess our vote. I don't get that.
Well, let's say if we had a first reading today, okay? For most people, even me, I mean, usually we find out about an ordinance the Friday before a meeting.
Right.
So our citizens are gonna find out about it. We did a first reading on this ordinance, and oh my God, when are they gonna vote on this? They're gonna vote second reading next month, and it's gonna be a vote. I'm gonna show up here if I have any opinion on it as a citizen. I'm gonna show up here and I would want to express my opinion and my input before the vote, which would be the second reading the following month. My point is, most people don't find out about what we're trying to do until it comes out as a first reading.
I understand that, I do, but I just think, they don't get an opportunity, after that first reading, until the next month. That's my problem, but.
Couldn't they just bring it up with the city admin, talk to the people in between? That's the whole gap that I don't understand. I feel like the citizens should be able to speak to the city not just once a month. So I have my own personal story with having to come before here, and I think hearing me at the beginning helped change some people's minds up here before they voted. So I honestly think that I would prefer to have it at the beginning, maybe limit the time, but I'd give them 5 minutes more than 3 minutes. You could explain what your problem is in 3 minutes and then the discussion's over. So I would say towards the beginning works just fine, and I've had to go through the process of a citizen trying to get something done here.
Perhaps of course this is the mayor's call, because the mayor establishes the agenda, as I've found out. And you can either put something on there or not if you don't want to. Have a second at the end if there's any audience feedback. Have it in the beginning on stuff so that they could comment on stuff we're about to vote on. And if you wanted to, anybody have anything as far as a comment at the end of the meeting, towards the end of the meeting? Solves both issues. I would like to hear the public input before I have a final vote on stuff. I know it could get out of hand, but as long as you got the gavel.
You got to put a time limit on it.
Yeah, you
got the gavel.
I think the gavel is a time limit. We've seen that in the past, and I don't want to tell somebody that they only have 3 minutes to explain their problem.
Almost every other council runs that way, sir.
Is that true?
A lot of them do have time limits. Naturally, though, people will figure it out. A lot of them are not sitting there with a stopwatch,
Usually
unless you
enforced unless they-
believe Covington may be one of the tougher ones about the
But
stopwatch.
we have
but everybody
had
else usually
presentations
is.
go on for 20 minutes, okay?
I've been through those.
Right, and we all have. So, I think it causes people to be more concise when you have a time limit and get to the point. But I'm just following up on a citizen request from our last meeting, that's all.
Fantastic.
And they made that at the beginning of the meeting, didn't they?
They did.
If anyone makes a motion, that's fine. I think it's fine the way it is. It's changed in the past, and
Apparently you make the agenda from what I understand.
I'm not polite, Jeff. Member Volter, I'm sorry.
The agenda is set by the mayor, except for the extended city council where you guys vote, make a rule of something you want him to abide by, then he's gonna have to follow that. He's just a presiding officer, he fills in the blanks that the city council hasn't dictated to him. The order and what items occur on the meeting usually been left to the mayor without dictation from the city council.
I just want to take a strong vote. Who would like to see it at the end, and who would like to see it at the end?
Straw vote. Oh,
Wait, and now we're.
I like his idea of
I
both.
think we left the meeting
Oh, okay.
aspect here of, I think if you want to ask for a motion, you can do that. I think asking for some kind of straw vote.
I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we put the public input towards the end of the agenda.
Second.
motion's been made by Mr. Volter and a second by Member Len. Any comments? This,
For what it's worth, I don't get a vote, but I'd like to see it.
ain't worth nothing, Michael.
It's not worth
But nice try. Tiffany, roll call.
Member Cornett?
No.
Member Burns?
Aye.
Member Lynn?
Aye.
Member Volter?
Aye.
Member Neary?
No.
Member Baszler?
No.
There's your first big decision.
And my first tiebreaker is no. We will keep them in the agenda as is.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Appreciate your follow-up, Jeff. That's good public service, sir.
I have some unfinished business, sir, if I could.
No, sir.
And I brought this up probably for the past 8 years now. And we experienced this last month with the tragedy at the railroad. And it's still not been addressed. The access in the alley from 7th Street down to 6th Street, I believe is that Boone or Benham up there? 7th, where it comes down and comes over to Benham. Nonetheless, that alley is in terrible shape. The ambulance, because the train, that road was put in there or maintained in case the train ever blocked the tracks and emergency vehicles had to get to that east end of 6th Street, which is exactly what happened. I would like administration to look into the cost of A, regrading that alley so that it is passable, and B, fixing the drainage issue that comes down 7th Street on that side of the street, goes right over that grate and goes right down that alley. All we need is about a 2-3 inch curve at the most. Emergency vehicles could still make it over that if the rest of it was passable. But I think that really needs to be addressed, and that was definitely an exhibition of why.
Can I get some clarification? I understand the drainage part. I've looked at that before. I can take that. But what, as far as regrading, we continually regrade it through the year, and I think the fire checks it throughout the year to make sure it's
We have not
passable.
tried to take the ladder truck or the pump through there in a while, I can say that for sure.
When you say regrading, are you talking about what we normally do, or are you talking about something else?
It's been a while. Some of the ruts there are pretty deep, and if we were to have a patient in the back of an ambulance trying to make it back up that hill, probably wouldn't. I'm just saying level it off so that it is passable, whether it's filling it in with gravel and compacting it. I'm not talking about putting asphalt on it, because that is
that'd make it even worse as far as the drainage issue down below.
Right.
But those people on 6, they have that water coming down into their backyard, it's impassable. I'd like to see a cost on that.
I mean, the regrading part is not, I mean, Public Works does that throughout the year, so that's really minimal cost. That's why I just wanted to clarify if you wanted something above and beyond that we don't do.
Well, last year, we fixed some curbs up on that 1,100 block of 7th Street, and I asked that the curbing be continued past that opening, at least 2 or 3 inches high to keep most of the rain from running down that alley. It was stopped right before that. I'd like to see some type of curbing there just to control the stormwater. There's more water coming out of that hill than there ever was.
Right, I get that, I just wanted to make sure I was clear on the.
Curbing to prevent
I got
more
the
water
curve, yeah, I'm
washing.
talking about just the road, you just to not resurface it or put any sort of asphalt down, just basically what we do now, continuing to fill it.
Right. Make it so that you could drive your car down there.
You're not talking
So you
about
want us to
gravel?
blacktop it?
No.
That's real smooth.
No, my main concern is for emergency vehicles, honestly, because you couldn't have come back up that alley with the patient in the back of that ambulance.
It's gonna be tight anyway.
You can get that truck down, that alley
It would-
turn.
Yeah. I mean, you would
Get
almost
the
have
ambulance,
you'd almost have to
get that
widen
Without-
widen that
yeah.
and,
Without actually blacktopping it, which I agree is not the right call because of the stormwater issue. Everything, all it takes is one big rain and it's washed out, so that's why I was trying to.
Well, because of the fact there's no curbing there. It goes right down that street.
Yeah, I understand the curbing part, and if that solves the problem, then the cost.
Let's try that first.
Cost for filling is probably,
Minimal.
yeah.
Understood. I'd like to see
So
that
most of
addressed this
the
year.
cost on the curbing is probably stuff that we're doing.
Yeah, it's probably about 25, 30 feet, I think I measured it at.
If you give them those numbers.
Yeah. Thank you, I'd love to see that addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Neri. Anyone else with unfinished business? Move on to new business. Anyone have any new business they'd like to bring before council?
I'll just mention, I probably should have put this in my report. We have a pre-construction meeting with Pru's Construction on Friday. That's for Phase 1 Riverfront Commons, so as soon as the weather, we've got contracts all ready to sign on Friday, so once the weather breaks, hopefully it'll be a mild into the winter and a warm start to the spring. We'll get started on Phase 1. And then we've got funding already for Phase 2 and 3, so we're already talking with KZF and the state, signing the agreements to start going into design for Phase 2 right away. So hopefully, it won't be too long after Phase 1 construction's done. We can bid out Phase 2 construction for hopefully early next year.
Construction or design on phase 2 and 3?
We'll start design on Phase 2, but that'll go much quicker than the process going for Phase 1. So hopefully we can go into Phase 2 construction next year.
And the phase 1 is from basically O'Fallon or the marine of the Queen City Riverboats over to Berry.
Not quite to Berry, it'll probably get us, around the first ST1 brick chamber, about 150 feet, 200 feet past that.
Okay.
Phase 2 will get us down past Berry Street, and then Phase 3 will complete it down to the marina.
Okay, thank you.
But Phase 3 funds aren't available until 2020, 2021 maybe, so we're a little ways away from that.
Thanks.
Anybody else with new business for the council? No new business, we'll need to make a motion to
Make a motion, we adjourn.
motion been made. So we adjourn, second's been made, all in favor of adjournment? Aye. Meeting's closed.